You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Happy to have you here with me today on this Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, and that is on how to keep the body healthy, how to keep the weight off by reducing total body burden. And now that it's becoming a much more mainstream topic, again, most people will still not have heard of this yet, but I was talking about this a decade ago, really, I was preaching to people that had never heard about this before, and it was never mentioned in the media. At least now, we actually have some excellent studies to prove what we're talking about. Finally, once and for all, the things that we've known have been happening for decades are now being studied by modern science, and I have that in air quotes, that give validity to what we've known now for thousands of years in Ayurvedic medicine and all the Eastern-based forms of medicine where detoxification was a seasonal thing that we always did. Literally, we didn't wait for the body to become sick. We worked on specific detoxification-based protocols. Today, I want to share with you 15 quick symptoms of what it looks like as you're starting to increase your total body burden, and then explain to you how the body actually stores these toxins in your fat cells. And that's why a lot of people we have right now, they're eating well. There's no doubt about that. They're exercising, they're moving their body, but they still can't keep the weight off. Or they're able to lose the majority of the weight, but they still hold a little bit around the middle. And they can't get rid of it no matter how hard they try. And I want to explain that because, again, it's proven now. We've known it for, I don't want you to think that because modern, medical science has said that this happens, now we can finally say, okay, it happens. It's been happening forever. Ayurvedic medicine really led the way with this in terms of panchakarma. And so, again, it's always been there. Modern medicine didn't figure it out. It's already been figured out, but we have now the actual science and we have the studies to be able to point to. And that's what most people want. So like when your doctor says, oh, there's no such thing as detoxification, your body does that anyways. Well, you can just point them to PubMed, and I'll link up the two articles here today. So simply go to stephencabral.com/1020. That's today, 1020. So I will link it up. The two, they're excellent research articles too. So that's why I don't always, quote all the research because the research is not always that great. This is great research articles. So two of them today, I'll give them both to you. And let me just give you the names of those. One is called Obesogens, an environmental link to obesity. Can't wait to bring you that one. And then the second one is toxicological function of adipose tissue, focus on persistent organic pollutants. Now that might just literally sound, gibberish to you, but all it means is this. Toxicological it just means toxicology, right? Or toxins. That's it. Chemicals in the environment. And adipose tissue, just think of that as your fat stores. And then a focus on persistent organic pollutants, well, that's just basically fat-soluble toxins such as pesticides, herbicides, plastic, DDT, all sorts of things that are basically left over in the environment that when you take in these types of toxins, you can't just huff them out through your lungs. They can't be sweat out that easily, and they can't come out through the urine. So they actually need to be processed by the liver. Now, if you've heard me talk about before, how to complete a functional medicine detox, why doing a functional medicine detox, if you haven't heard that, simply go to stephencabral.com/podcasts and type in functional medicine detox, and you'll be able to actually figure out why this works. And if you haven't read the Rain Barrel Effect, well, that will teach you in depth exactly how toxic you may be right now, because it gives you a great little quiz. But it also goes through how detoxification actually takes place in your body so that it doesn't, it demystifies it, that there isn't this new age Eastern-based approach. Not at all. It's what we've always known in Eastern-based medicine philosophies. And we take that with modern science. And I believe in everything. And my job is to bring it all together, become, what I call a truly integrative health practitioner. It's not saying like, oh, well, the MD is best, the ND is best, the DO is best, the chiropractor is best. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. What I can say is all of these forms of medicine are phenomenal. And what we need to do is bring them all together instead of playing the game like my form of medicine is better than your form of medicine. My degree is better than your degree. Like my herbal medicine is better than your herbal medicine. We don't need to play that game. What we need to do, we need to teach, if we're practitioners, the people we work with, patients or wellness clients, exactly how these things take place in their body. So we demystify it. So today I want to go through all of that right now. And very, very simple. If you've never heard of chemicals or toxins before, these are things such as the aluminum in your tap water that you don't know is even there, the fluoride in your tap water that you don't know is there. It could be the pesticides on your food, which keep the bugs away. It's literally bug spray that you're eating. Could be the herbicides. It could be the fungicides that keep away the yeast and the different types of growth on the soil as well as the crops. It could be, again, the plastics from the bottles that you're consuming. Any one of these things. And again, there's over 77,000 of them if you live here in the United States, over 8,000 if you live in Europe and Australia as well, and that you're being exposed to them. You're being exposed to them on a daily basis. If you walk outside and there are cars or buses, you're inhaling the brake dust and all the different fumes and all the different toxins as well. And a lot of the invisible ones, oftentimes they can be more harmful, right? So we're looking at things that are gases. They need to be broken down by the liver. Well, what happens is when you consume these toxins, again, unknowingly, you're not purposely trying to consume toxins, but they might be in your favorite sports drink or any type of colored-based food or beverages. When you take them in, your body has to eliminate them. And what that means is that how it works is if you swallow them, if they come in through food or water, then you're going to get them in your stomach. They're going to move through your stomach into your small intestine. Now, your small intestine has what's called a brush border, lacteal-based cells, or villi. And then what happens is, as the food moves into the small intestine, your liver drops bile down. And that bile is great. It's supposed to emulsify fats, and it's supposed to really grab chemicals and toxins and move it right out of the bowels. Well, there's two problems. One is if the brush border, if you have intestinal-based issues, isn't working, you're not going to be able to sweep those out. That's literally their job. And the second part is, if you're constipated, you will reabsorb any of these. There's a third and there's a fourth as well. If you have leaky gut or intestinal permeability, which so many people do, you can actually absorb these chemicals directly from the intestines where they were never supposed to come out right into the bloodstream. Okay, this is the most dangerous. That's the most dangerous part, and it happens all the time. The fourth way is this. If there's a lack of fiber, which means all these people on these low-carb diets, right? It's not your fault, but you're being told you're low-carb, high-fat. Scary. If you lack fiber in your diet, there is no bulk to sweep through the intestines, which means the bile doesn't get as bound up with the fiber. And then what happens to the bile? Well, it gets reabsorbed, but it gets reabsorbed with what? All of the toxins. And those toxins then go where? To your liver. Now your liver is burdened to a greater degree. No one's talking about this at all. I mean, I've never heard people talk about this, but if you read the research, it's right there. So what happens is now, since you didn't eliminate it through the bowels, it's being brought back through the lymphatic system, the gut-associated lymphoid tissue called the GALT. That's bringing it to the liver. And what happens is this. The lymphatic system starts to get backed up. The liver starts to get backed up and congested. Is it still working? Yes, it's still working. Your body will keep you alive. I'm not saying that, but what happens is this. The body is a symphony. It's orchestrated so that there are backup plans on top of backup plans. So the first signs that you are becoming toxic is that you're starting to feel bloated. You start to have indigestion. You have fatigue. You have headaches. You've got weight gain. You feel joint pain or muscle stiffness. Difficulty thinking, or basically like brain fog, hard to think, hard to concentrate. You could have loose stool, or you could be constipated. You could have a lot more gas, whether it be burping, belching, or just gas. So you can have sinus-based congestion issues, puffy eyes, dark circles in the eyes, although that has to do with many, many different things. But puffy eyes for sure, that's a big sign that the kidneys are actually getting backed up as well, that there's things in the blood that they should certainly not be filtering. You can have skin rashes, a lot of food cravings or just dysregulated blood sugar as well. Heartburn, indigestion would be in there. The big one that I want to talk about today is this, is that you begin to retain water. Now, most people look at this as body fat. And forever, as a young personal trainer, I certainly thought this. And I'm like, listen, I'm giving this person the proper nutrition plan. I know that it works. I'm giving them the proper exercise plan, the intervals, all of these things. And for like 1 out of 100 people or so, 3 out of 100 people, they just, no matter what, they couldn't do it. Like it was not happening with their body. And it was the oddest thing. Because again, in my early 20s, other personal trainers used to send their clients to me for nutrition. That was just kind of my specialty because I had been studying it by the time I was, 24 or so for 7 years, because I was on my own path. And so kind of specialized in nutrition and sports supplements. So that's what I did so much of. But again, there was like always these like couple problem clients where like no matter what they did, it did not respond to even the most advanced diets. I was doing fasting back then. I was doing all sorts of different things to manipulate the metabolism to help speed it up, whether it be every 2 hours to 3 hours eating very, very tiny meals, or then I would do other things for blood sugar regulation. I would then go longer periods of time depending on the person. Like it was all these different very intricate diets, all based on the person, but sometimes it just wouldn't work. And so that left me scratching my head because I just didn't have the input to know that there was this thing called chemical obesogens. Well, what happens is this. When you are very, very stressed, and I mentioned this before, that your body is not going to allow you to tap into body fat. The level that your body's at, it believes it's in a survival-based state. You can tune back from my previous shows on why HPA axis dysfunction, which means basically adrenal stress or fight or flight or sympathetic nervous system dominance. It tells you we're not in a fat burning stage right now. We're not going to promote leptin and any of these, great things for fat burning because we need to hold on to everything because we're in a stressful situation. Now, stress to your body would have meant warfare. It would have meant drought, or it would have meant no food, like basic life-saving things, like from that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? It's the food, it's the shelter, like just the bare minimum. And if you're not getting that, if you don't have that safety security, your body's going to hold on to body fat. It's not messing up. Again, your body's not messing up. It's being sent signals that it's under distress. And when it's under distress or duress, however you want to look at it, it's saying, okay, well, I know how to keep us alive longer. I'm going to slow metabolic rate. So your body does something very smart. It didn't mess up. We have to get, as practitioners and just people in general, we need to get away from the belief that our body's always messing up and that's why we're sick. No. Most of the sickness and dis-ease that we see today are symptoms of our body actually trying to right the ship. If you have skin rashes and skin disorders and acne, that's your body most likely either maybe it has a hormone imbalance. That's an absolute possibility. But for a lot of other people, that's how the body eliminates its best way to eliminate toxins, right through the skin. So that's one methodology. And so we look at that, like, did the body mess up? And that's why it's creating acne. And now we need to be put on antibacterials. Well, the antibacterials help oftentimes because there's what? Well, there's bacteria overloaded in the body. But if we begin to do something like a candida and bacterial overgrowth protocol and then seal up the gut wall, well, that would work too, right? And if we have high estrogen dominance, well, if we corrected the estrogen dominance, then that would work too. Same with the higher levels of testosterone. So again, we can correct these things. The body's not messing up. What we need to do is figure out the reasons why it's needed to respond in this way. So now it brings me to my point of this. A lot of people are holding excessive amounts of water weight that's making their body look puffy. It's making it look swollen. It's making it look like it's body fat. And it is. I'm going to explain that in a moment. But also they're getting more and more cellulite, which is a true sign of toxicity as well. So here's an interesting thing to look at. Where does the water go? Well, the water can actually go right into the adipose tissue and fat stores as well. So when we look at this, and your body, so let's get back to the part of, let's say, intestinal permeability and leaky gut. These are fat-soluble toxins, whether it's in the blood or whether they became water-soluble through the intestines and now trying to get out your colon, but it wasn't able to move all the way out. It moved back in your bloodstream because of intestinal permeability, which, again, you can test on certain great labs, such as an organic acids test to look for yeast and fungal-based overgrowth, to look for certain types of bacterial overgrowth, and you can run a stool test as well. Those will tell you. And It will show you bacterial overgrowth. It will show you H. pylori, really, really great labs for the stool test as well. So besides that, though, what happens is that the lymphatic system starts to get blocked up with all this extra fat and all these toxins that it's being brought over to the liver, and the liver gets backed up. So now the lymphatic system's really backed up. Here's what the body has to do. It can't get it out of the body that easily. It's having a very difficult time, especially if the person's not exercising, they're not sweating, they're not doing things like dry brushing. The body says, okay, what other means do we have? Well, we were given this intricate system that in times of survival and the body was becoming too toxic, and this is now literally proven. So we have the proven science now. So anybody who disagrees is like, oh, I don't believe in that. Say, listen, you don't need to believe in it. Here's the actual research that proves it. So here's what the body does in all its brilliance. It says, okay, here's what we can do. We can now store these chemicals, because toxins are just chemicals, inside of fat cells. And that will be then closed off from the rest of the body. And so what happens is the body brings those toxins in. Along with it comes water. And those fat cells, the fat obviously accumulates as well with the adipose tissue. And the body becomes more swollen. Now, it is body fat, but it's really toxic water weight. And the water is following all those toxins. So now what happens is when we accumulate more and more fat, what else happens? Well, we can oftentimes raise our own endogenous inside forms of estrogen. So now we increase estrogen. Now we get all these estrogen hormonal-based issues, especially in women, and we start to see the acne. We start to see some of the facial hair growth or bloating or lower mood or more water retention, right? Because it just becomes exacerbated. And then on top of that, we also have to deal with the issue of higher levels of inflammation. And then we know that cycle can obviously repeat itself, which we've spoken about in the past. So what we're talking about right now, a lot of times is as we're putting on more and more fat or having difficulty losing it, that last 5 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever it might be, and I've spoken about that before, we're oftentimes looking at someone that is over toxic rather that the term is called over fat. So if someone's overweight, the medical term would call it over fat. But really, I look at it as now they're over toxic. If they've been following a pretty clean diet, 1 flex meal or so a week, maybe 2, and they're eating predominantly plant-based, their body's being flushed, and they're doing the right things. And again, it doesn't have to, you can choose the diet, but again, it should be predominantly plant-based. So you're at least there, or at least start to get there if you're not doing that right now. What we can look at is, okay, well, this person can't really eat too much better, and they're already exercising, so they've got that part down pat. Could they do other things? Of course. But those things now should not be focused on going lower calorie or going keto or doing anything that's going to put further stress on their body. What we need to do is tell the body it's not stressed. And then we need to work on what? Well, we need to work on sealing up the gut wall. That is an issue. But we need to work on liver-based detoxification. Or give your body another outlet to get rid of it as well. So do your exercise. Do the 10,000 steps per day. Do your dry brushing each morning. Drink at least half your body weight in ounces of water per day. Add some lemon. Add some ginger to it if you would like. Pinch of sea salt if you would like. And as we're doing that, we're beginning to flush. We're beginning to flush the lymphatic system. We're beginning to flush the intestines. These are all great, great things for our body, especially when we add some of that ginger to it as well. So these are all beneficial, important things. What I want to do is bring it to your attention today that this is real, that this is not, some natural health type thing that isn't part of medical science, that these chemical obesogens actually do promote not only fat storing, not due to even blood sugar dysregulation, but to toxins in the blood that it must get rid of, and due to the other factor that it begins to cause leptin resistance as well. So why would your body cause leptin resistance? And again, if you don't know what leptin and ghrelin are, I do invite you to go to stephencabral.com/podcasts and type in the 2 fat-burning hormones, which are leptin and ghrelin. And so what they do is they tell your body essentially when you're full, when you're hungry, when to burn body fat, and when not to. And they're not the only ones, of course, but that's very, very important. Also, check out the show I did on the bacteria that helps with weight loss, the Bacteroides and the Firmicutes. And I've spoken about this, but again, improper gut microbiome balance in terms of good bacteria to, let's say, negative bacteria. forces some people to gain more weight than others and burn less body fat than others. So what I look to do, that's why people ask all the time, have you ever seen anybody, have you ever treated anybody, have you ever cured anybody that, all those different terms, who's had this, or this? And I say, a lot of times we'll say, well, we don't diagnose, cure, or treat disease. Of course we say that because we have to say that. The other part is this, though, is what we say. We say, yes, we've seen people with those specific things. Or we might say, no, we've never seen anybody with that. It's a kind of a rare thing now if we haven't. But the truth is, we mean no disrespect by saying this. We don't care too much what the name of your dis-ease is. And that's because your dis-ease has come to fruition because that is your genetic predisposition. But the only way the genetic predisposition is ever allowed to rear its ugly head is when the environment was right for that predisposition to come to fruition. That's it. So what I say is, forget the name of your dis-ease. Keep it if you want. Again, I name the dis-eases that I used to have: Addison's disease, type 2 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, POTS, myalgic encephalomyelitis, a couple other fun ones as well, but we'll just stick with those, right? Fibromyalgia, I could go on and on. But what I want to tell you is this. Those were all names of manifestations of symptoms that were happening in my body. But the only reason I had any of those, and why I don't have them today, is because back then my body was unhealthy, it was imbalanced, and today it's balanced and it's healthy. So now I don't have any of those dis-eases that I was supposed to live with for the rest of my life. I was told I would just have to manage my diseases and live with them for the rest of my life. Well, one day I decided that I was not going to accept that was not going to be my life. And I invite you, if you're ready, now the time might not be right for you, but if you're ready, I invite you to do the same. Because I realized that all of these things are not really a dis-ease. They're symptoms. When I had Addison's disease, I had no energy, no ability to really think clearly. I had no cortisol. I wasn't able to produce an anti-inflammatory. My body I had flu-like symptoms all the time. And when I had rheumatoid arthritis, could not grip anything because the joints in my thumbs were so painful it was debilitating, and same with my left elbow. And when I had blood sugar dysregulation, I literally had to urinate when I had type 2 diabetes every 20 minutes. It was absolutely insane. So again, those were all symptoms. Call it the disease if you want, or call it whatever. I had a level of toxicity that was absolutely deplorable. I had yeast overgrowth, candida overgrowth, all the way from my intestines into my stomach, all the way up my esophagus. I had to eliminate all that, right? I had to eliminate the SIBO, and I had to eliminate the H. pylori. I then had to seal up my gut. I then had to work on my immune balance, which took some time to quiet down after having leaky gut for a decade, right? So these are all things that we need to work on. But what truly, I believe, has truly helped me to this day in order to keep the level of energy and health that I so desire is by continuing to detoxify my body. So again, I really implore you to look into a functional medicine detox as a way to not only lose weight the healthy way and to keep the weight off, but to get healthy and stay healthy in general. And I want you to know that, yes, our product is the Dr. Cabral Detox, so the Equilibrium Nutrition Detox, but you don't have to use that. I even tell you in the Rain Barrel Effect exactly all of the ingredients that are in it, and to use your own if you choose to. I even go so far, I believe, as to provide links to other brands in the Rain Barrel Effect. And I just want you to know that this isn't going away. And the reason I feel so strongly about it is that I know I'm not going to be able to see every single person that I would love to see in my practice. But if I can get people doing seasonal 7-day detoxes, start with a 21-day and then do 7-day seasonal ones, they're going to be able to begin to eliminate a lot of these chemicals that, yes, can cause weight gain, but they can also cause a host of other issues in the body. Autoimmune are just some of them, but it really just begins to wear down the body. So what I want you to know is there's always a reason why. On today's show, I wanted to show you the direct link between chemicals in the environment, poor digestion or a backed up lymphatic system and backed up liver, and your body being told then to store more body fats. And then again, that cycle just repeating itself. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to do an intestinal cleanse. We need to do the functional medicine detoxes. We need to do the things to drive the chemicals out of our body, the heavy metal detoxes. Whatever you have, we need to remove that from the body. So what could you do? Well, you can do a 21-day functional medicine detox. Let's say in January, you start your year that way. That would be a great way to do it. Okay, that's a great way to do it. But another way that we do it too is we don't allow them to accumulate during the holidays. So on yesterday's show, I talked about that. So for a lot of people, the last week of November, next week, the first week of December, they're doing a 7-day detox to not allow it to accumulate while you're going to holiday parties and extra things going on. But how I want you to think about it in your life is that this was really the whole theme to this show, is that you can be doing everything right, so to seem, right? The right nutrition, the right exercise, not too much, not too little. You can be doing, even the dry brushing, those types of things, which is great, and I want to promote those. But if your liver is backed up and you've been storing a lot of toxins in the body fat for quite some time, the only way out of that is to literally purge the body of those toxins. Now, the good news is we know it can happen. We know that the body's equipped to do this. But it's also why when you are losing weight and you are burning body fat, all of those toxins are being eliminated. Nobody ever talks about that. And what happens is your body has to be prepared for that because the adipose tissue has been quoted as 300 times more toxic than your blood. But when you burn through the process of lipolysis, adipose tissue or body fat for fuel, you don't burn just the fat at the 9 calories per gram. What you're burning is what's being released as well as those toxins. And now they're back in the bloodstream. That's not a bad thing because you have to get them out of your body sometime as long as your liver is equipped to be able to eliminate them as well. That is the main point for today. Again, do the sauna, use the dry brushing, do the self-massage, do everything you need to continue moving the lymphatic system and mobilizing these toxins out of your body. But please do support your liver. Try to make that a part of your routine going forward in 2019. Share this information with your friends, your family, your coworkers. If you're a practitioner, I can't recommend it enough. Again, you can use the Equilibrium Nutrition products, but you don't have to. All I want you to do are find good functional medicine brands that you can share with your friends, your family to get them the help that, yes, they deserve it, but honestly, they need it. Like they need to do these things because it catches up with all of us. Maybe not this year, maybe in 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. But why not just do the work now so that you feel better than ever and it never does catch up with you? Hopefully this show is helpful. Thanks so much for tuning in. And I will link up that research today at stephencabral.com/1020. Please do feel free to share this with anyone else you may believe it could serve. Take care, everyone. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stephencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.